UK Cinema History, Episode 43, A Night to Remember, 1958. So, welcome to UK Cinema History. Today we're going to be covering A Night to Remember from 1958, directed by Roy Ward Baker, whom we last discussed when he was directing Ingrid Pitt's boobs in the Vampire Lovers, and many more films, but that was the last film that we covered him in. And of course, stars Kenneth More, who we last talked about for the Admirable Crichton. This is considered one of the largest budget films of the 1950s out of England, and according to some sources, still to this day has not made a profit. Not exactly true. That's all that kind of rank, weird bookkeeping, how they used to spread it out among several films, so that none of their films looked like they were doing too badly. But this was such an expensive film that it actually almost would have bankrupted Rank, and they actually knew at the time that it would take several years for them to make their money back, but didn't mind putting the money up for it because they considered it kind of a prestige piece and something that they could market to the international market. But
you're saying it almost sank them.
I wish I could find the drum roll. Ba-dum-bump. Yes. It almost sank Rank like the Titanic. But I'm going to start in PTR order. And Hi, was this the first time you got to see this film? And what were your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't know why you keep asking me that, but yes, I'm part of this show because you're making me see films I haven't seen. So the answer will typically be yes, but if it's no, I'm not sure what difference it makes. Anyway, it's a magnificent film. It blew the top of my head off. I watched this, I said, oh my God. It's like one amazing thing after another. It's like a documentary, but with the drama of fiction. The details it goes into are just jaw-dropping. And there's so many elements. You got the arrogance of man versus the realities of nature. You've got class systems. James Cameron did an excellent job of capitalizing on those tensions in his version, but this version is much more interested in the details of what happened. And I mean, Cameron's version is magnificent. This is magnificent too. I was just enraptured the whole time. One thing that I'm going to sometimes talk about the film and sometimes talk about the actual event. So let me switch gears here and say one of the things that strikes me about the actual event was something I saw on a talk show years ago. I don't remember who it was. It might have been David Niven, but there was somebody on a talk show talking about it, and he said that he found it fascinating that so many Americans survived, and he thinks it's because the British were too polite to live. That the British passengers would go, pardon me. Sure. Oh, you want to rush ahead? Who am I to stop you? And I think that is likely the case. But in addition, because I didn't have this information until doing some research about the film, there were 109 children aboard, and 53 died. Over half of the children died. And I think it's because children don't have the capacity to push past adults to get onto boats. Um, and there were 425 women, 109 of them died. And there were 1,352, I'm sorry, there were 1,690 men, 1,352 perished. But interestingly, the number of men who survived, 338, was more than the number of women, 316. So I think the women and children, someone might ask, why women and children first? Why women and children like more special than men? I think it's partly just to balance things out because the men are more likely to just otherwise just throw civilization aside and keep any women and children from getting on board. So, so that's one thing that struck me. The film doesn't make a big deal out of that, but I think it's something that really strikes me about what happened. There were so out of the 1,514 people on board, more than two-thirds of them died. And by the way, part of it is that the lifeboats, they didn't have enough lifeboats. The idea at the time was that they were going to, the lifeboats would be used to ferry passengers back and forth from a stricken ship to a nearby rescuing ship. It didn't occur to them that the lifeboats would be used to just keep people alive in an open sea. So that's why that was part of a problem. So many, it's estimated uh, 500 passengers would have been saved had the. Well, that's another thing is also the lifeboats they didn't fill the capacity. It's estimated as many as 500 more passengers would have been saved had the lifeboats been filled to capacity. One of the issues was um, that not everybody realized the lifeboats could hold 68 people, so they underfilled them out of caution that they would lose everybody. But so that was not a good thing. And also, someone named Charles Lightoller uh, was lowering half-empty lifeboats because there were no women and children nearby. And apparently, it seems like the captain ordered him to load women and children, and he took that to mean women and children only. And so even though the lifeboats were half full, he wouldn't let men on board, except for one man to guide each boat. So that's like a semantic tragedy that, he just misunderstood. Instead of women and children first, women and children only. So, these kinds of things are just, I think, fascinating and horrifying at the same time, which kind of is, the mood of the film. I shall say
I have something to say, if you don't mind. Uh, Regarding October 7, those guys, they were able to rape anything. So they had some experience, some 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 they had some skills, you know.
in defense of the issues with the lifeboats. Prior to Titanic, the safety record of British passenger service was really good. Uh, over the previous 10 years, they had 3.5 million passengers and only 73 people died out of 3.5 million. So they had a certain amount of faith that those lifeboats wouldn't likely be needed. Um, but I mean, it's an amazing thing. Um, since we have Yassi joining us and Sila, we've got enough people on stage. I don't need to keep talking. I've got more stuff to say, but I'll let that be my initial thoughts because I found all of that really striking. But just the whole thing of life, death, and who lives and who dies is one of the most absolutely compelling things about the event and the film.
Thanks, Hi. Sila, was this your first time viewing the film? Yes, I'm going to continue asking that question. And and what were your thoughts?
It was indeed my first time ever. I did see the one from James Cameron, but I saw it quite a while ago. I would say I saw it probably 20 years ago. I'm not sure when it came out, so probably around the time it came out, that's when I saw it. So I cannot really compare it, but going by my feeling, I find this one to be much better. Much better in terms of impressing me with the work in itself. The old one for me was more commercial, very commercial, extremely commercial, and too sweet for my bad teeth. Anyway, um, I want to start with one what I would call negative trivia, and it's just a small, fairly insignificant thing, but according to what I see, around 1 minute and 30, I'm sorry, 1 hour and 30 minutes, we see for the last time that food cart, I think it was a food cart, metal, maybe it had some meat, but we saw it, I think, 3 times moving by itself because of everybody knows why it was moving. The last time we see it is about 1 hour and 30 minutes. And after a while, it hits a small white column that is square. Looks, it's made out of wood, and it bends that. So to me, that is a trivial mistake because I, to me, makes no sense that that column would have been bent by this slowly moving food cart. But that's, like I said, small trivia. Hi, you mentioned documentary, and to me, from the beginning, this was very much a Homo sapiens documentary, studying how humans are in terms of how they behave, their arrogance, their misconception of what is to be alive and what is to be one person other than the other person, the level of importance of not only classicism, but the the crazy things that happen in this film, including Guggenheim saying, "Tell my wife." Excuse me, there's a helicopter coming by.
That happens.
Including Guggenheim saying, "Make sure you tell my wife that I went as a decent person." I mean, there are so many details that for me are pure documentation of how stupid humans are. And I don't mean that in a silly way, but in a more intellectual, philosophical way. There were so many aspects of why do we do that? Why do we behave this way? Why do we make choices in this way after centuries of being alive and documenting what we have lived? And I mean, there are so many details that I didn't make a list of them, but I will start with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Sila. Kathy, you had said you had a couple of points. Did you want to make them now, or did you want to wait until we go through the PTR order?
I will interject now. Actually, I think it might be of interest. I watched this as a kid, and I think it was the first time I'd seen anything that kind of. I thought, is this a documentary? Is it, what's going on here? It confused me a little, but the enjoyment. I say enjoyment. I was in tears at the end of it. As a person from the UK, I found this so moving, so moving, and that's not to say other people don't, but it encompassed everything it is to be British. As Sila said, the stupidity, the hubris, the bravery, the overall, kind of overreaching what you're capable of, and not taking any precautions for that. That kind of sunk in later, but I just remember seeing Kenneth More and at the end and just crying my eyes out. And I think the class thing is important in this because, as I understand it, the people in steerage and the lower classes, that they were just gone basically, and the people that survived were proportionately kind of from the first class passengers. I could be wrong about that. But I found the whole film very moving and well done. And I've not seen Titanic. I have no wish to see Titanic. That you can make of that what you will. But it was superb. I don't know why you'd need to do another Titanic film, quite frankly. And I'm trying to think what film it reminded me of. Or what films since have made me think about it, and I can't. They're just on the tip of my tongue, so I'll have to pass on that one. But a beautiful film, and one that needs to be seen a bit more, I think. And I like this little detail about it never making a profit. That seems extraordinary. And I'll tell you what as well. I had this on VHS, I believe, when I first started buying videos back in the day. So that's one to explain to the millennials. But thank you, Eric, for giving me the opportunity to talk about it. Thank you.
I
May
just
I
want to
make
jump
a
in
small?
one quick thing to follow up on Kathy. Of the 53 children who died, 52 of them were from third class steerage. So only one child who died was not from third class.
Yeah, I just wanted to connect on something as well. First of all, I didn't say how much I liked the film. I focused on other parts. I really liked the film, and I just wanted to comment. In my opinion, and in my remembrance of Titanic, with the Cameron film, the difference I would say is one seems to me to be addressing what happened one to one, where Cameron, in my opinion, made it a little bit, used it as a backdrop for a love story. So to me, they're two different approaches. I'm not saying that Cameron did not take the story seriously, but I think he was more focusing on the commercial side and elevated the romantic story as and using the Titanic as the backdrop.
I think they're both brilliant films, and I don't see a need to pit one against the other, but I'm grateful to have seen both.
Yeah, I honestly, one of the things I want to avoid is just kind of making this about the '97 Titanic, because so much of what I read online is just comparing this to the '97 Titanic, and I think this film exists on its own, really. But
Definitely.
Yassi, Soufi, thank you, thank you. I know you had to rush home from work and and immediately get into Clubhouse, but we appreciate you. Your thoughts on A Night to Remember?
Hi everybody. Yeah, sorry, I just like, I still don't know what I was going to say, but yeah, what told you, what I really liked about the film was I knew that there was going to be a big, like I told you that you probably gonna love this movie because all of the trivial aspects of it, but what I really loved, what struck to me was the use of themes and motifs in the film and the cinematography and the use of music and the use of silence in the film. And I think what, and you said that we're not going to compare, but I think it's inevitable because the two movies are too similar. But the way that this movie uses, I think that it's a good study of what the audiences want in the 50s, the late 50s, or comparing to what the audiences wanted from Cameron at the almost late 90s. So, the use of music, for instance, the way that this movie uses silence and, the darkness, comparing to the Cameron's movie, I think it's a very good thing to study and to see what the different audiences in different eras want. Also, because they said that this movie is important and ageless, because this is a movie about it's a tale it's the story of the end of an era if we look at it from this societal conventions and the servants and the masters and the sacrifices and the cowardice and the courageous and the way that they talked about women and children here, or and the other thing that I thought it was so important, more than the is it like accurate, is who is this person, is it like, oh, that part isn't accurate historically, that part is, I think the narrative structure, the way that it is told from multiple perspectives, you know and even though it's the story is narrated from different perspective, it doesn't lose the focus on the human drama. We still get, we see every single person on that crowd, on the chaos. We are able to find all these people, even though they're not famous actors. I think the movie is so important because it's the story of the, you know from the class's perspective, if we want to think that Titanic is a microcosm of the world and different classes and all that, the thing that I think the use of non-famous actors play, again, I always say that how casting matters. And here, I think it wants to, by not choosing famous actors, it's a deliberate choice because it wants to tell the story of unsung heroes, of the forgotten. And the other thing that I found very striking was, as I said, the motifs, the way that movie uses, I said, the light and darkness, the silence, the music, and the forever present, this constant presence of water and ice, and the way that this uh, water is always like the way that the weakness of human, when it gets to nature, how weak we are in front, when it does, the frozen ocean doesn't care if you're rich or poor. We all are weak when it gets to nature. We it's this this realization of the grandiose of nature and how powerful it can be, and no technology can overcome that power. I think it's something that makes this movie or the story of Titanic so timeless. And also, yeah, there are a lot of things like, yeah, the human mistakes, the who is responsible, who is not, the blame, and all that. So we can get to that later.
Thanks, Yazzie. I don't know if I'm pronouncing this correctly, but is it Nishadali?
Yes, thank you, Eric. Hello, everybody. Um, that was my first time seeing this film, and I was just mesmerized. Um, you know, I I didn't really want to compare it to the Cameron film. Cameron film, as Sila mentioned, was more of a backdrop, to the love story. But I especially liked, the perspective of the second officer. It kind of added the realism to the tragedy that was about to unfold. Um, whereas the Cameron film, you had so many different perspectives from so many different socialites that were on board. And, as Yassi mentioned, the silence was particularly eerie because we already know what's going to happen, unfortunately, to these people on board. So, watching it for the first time, I was just, the cinematography was just on point, and it had such a realistic essence and a feeling to everything, the human emotion, and especially, for a film in the late 50s, early 60s. So, I'm definitely going to watch it again. Um, it's just, I've read books on the Titanic, of course, the Cameron film, and even so raised the Titanic in the early '80s. So I've always been kind of
You were the one who saw that movie then.
I think I'm the only one, but all in all, a fantastic, fantastic film. Even though it chronicles the tragedy that will always live on in people's memories and hearts, for generations to come. But another thing is that I felt like I was on board with them because these weren't, I think, as Yassi mentioned, I mean, they were unknown actors, I guess, for the most part. So uh, it was like it could have happened, God forbid, to any one of us if we were there at the time, So just a dramatic, dramatic film. Loved it, and I'm definitely going to watch it again. And thank you so much for letting me speak today. Thank you all.
Well, no, we appreciate your insight and for you being here, Nishadali, and you're welcome. We're here every Thursday at 5 p.m. Next week, we're going to be doing Kind Hearts and Coronets, and if you click on the UK Cinema History banner, you'll see we have all our films scheduled out through August. So I hope to see you here again.
Yeah, I definitely will. Definitely will return. Thank you so much. Much appreciated.
So, before I get into my thoughts on the film, I want to start with one of the things, and when you look at how many of the things ended up in the Cameron film that ended up from here, that is because they're basically going from the same set of facts. Because the Walter Lord book,
Well,
which came out
also
in
because Cameron saw the film before he made his own film.
That is true too, but the Walter Lord book that this is based on, and this is very faithful to that book, is still to this day, with all the research that we've done, with the going down and actually visiting the wreck, still the most accurate and has the most information of any collection of information on the Titanic. He not only went through the congressional testimony, because the United States House of Representatives and Senate both had a joint committee to investigate this, but he took eyewitness testimony from almost all of the survivors. I think of the survivors, there were less than 40 that he wasn't able to contact or refuse to talk to him, but before he created this book. And but it is very
He
interesting.
spoke to 64 survivors.
Thank you. I didn't have the number off the top of my head, but of the survivors, he was also able to get a lot of great information, and in terms of this film being, which it is still to this day considered the most accurate version of the Titanic, it is interesting that it's almost its opening shot is of a historical inaccuracy, because of course it starts with the Titanic being christened, which the Titanic was of course never Christian, because White Star didn't believe in christening films. And this is actually a big deal because among sea heads, this is considered the bad luck that set it off, because they consider not christening a ship to be incredibly bad luck. But so you start with this incredible inaccuracy, and then you move to the kind of class structure. It's set up for you right away. First, with the train ride with Kenneth More and his wife. And then with the wealthy couple about to go on the trip, with the servants' children all going out, and him saying something about them wanting their Christmas turkeys, and basically both of them, these are one of them is going to be the second mate on the ship. The other one is going to be traveling first class. These are you're going to see them as the survivors, and then intercutting with the Irish who are immigrating to the United States of America. And it is interesting because I do, of course, as a good Boshi socialist, love the setting up of this class distinction in any film. But why has it always got to be the Irish? I always ask in these films, and I have my answer, and I think you all know what it is. But the fact of the matter is that of the bottom deck, a third were Irish, but you also had a huge number of Syrians who were immigrating. You had a large number of Eastern European Jews who were fleeing pogroms. And all of them lost their lives as well. But of course, we have to see that class through the eyes of the Irish, because, and I'm going to say it out loud, they're white. But this is 1958, so that's out of the way. Those are my ever so slight negatives on this film. Everything else I absolutely love about this film, and this is going to sound like a negative thing to say, but the next time I'm in an Alfred Hitchcock room and someone is making an excuse about how, well, the limits of the technology that Hitchcock had, and that's why the rear projection looks so weird and lousy or whatever, I'm going to say, watch A Night to Remember. And because this is a film done almost entirely with rear projection and with miniatures, and you whip absolutely. Yeah, I think there were about 4 times where I noticed that it was actually rear projection, and there was like one time when you see the ship and you can kind of see that they're not actually real people on the ship because it's a miniature. Other than that, I was completely sucked in, and the black and white photography is real, which also blends in other footage from the 1941 Nazi-made film, for instance, and other ship footage, how carefully they processed it so that the grain would look exactly the same as the rest of the film, and the care and the love and the detail and all the little details, like the tracking shot down the hallway, the little detail when the man is going into the woman's room, and you see the door close, and just then the ship starts to tilt, and you see the ship tilting by seeing the door tilt. These things, I mean, it is just a wonderful film on a technical level, and directed by, again, Roy Ward Baker, who we last talked about as directing one of my favorite Hammer films, The Vampire Lovers. And it wasn't just because of Ingrid Pitt's tits, although they are beautiful. It is because it is of the later Hammer films the most gothic, and the most beautiful to look at. Same with this film, and yet, as Sila pointed out, it's a documentary, and that is where this film really gets me. It is both very glamorous to look at, especially so that you get that sense of the upper deck life, and also very documentary like. And the way that it trods that line is so incredibly beautiful. And then I don't want to monopolize all the time talking about this film, so I'm just going to talk about a couple of moments that really moved me beyond what I would get out of another film. So towards the end, you have the little boy who's looking for his mother, and the old man takes him. And he, I want my mommy, and you're thinking, oh, they're setting up just an emotional gut punch here, and yet the moment when it comes, when they go up, when they bring him aboard one of the life rafts, and the old man has carefully carried him, and you realize that the boy is actually frozen to death, and Kenneth More just has to throw his body back into the sea. Number one, I mean, big lump in my throat, number one. But number two, this is 1958, and they're showing this, and the amount of emotional impact that has, but also the way it's shot, the way it's framed, Kenneth More's performance. And the thing is, that kid is probably a dummy. Right? I mean, they don't actually have a child pretending to be dead and throwing him into cold water, but it doesn't matter because it's so incredibly well done. And so yet again, I say, when I'm looking at films from this era and people are making excuses for better known directors that, oh, they were limited by the technology, oh, they were limited by this, oh, they were limited by that. No, they weren't. They were limited by their imagination, quite honestly, because this has been Roy Ward Baker's career MO, because he made those micro budget films for Amicus, like Asylum, and he made the very, very small budgets for Hammer, and his whole MO is working around these types of issues to make them look as realistic as possible. And again, I don't want to monopolize everybody's time. I do have a lot more notes because this is a very important film. And I also did want to welcome Eric Cornelius to the audience, and Don Field to the stage. And of course, we love having you. And I'm going to open it up for some more commentary.
I got stuff. So because I have a fair number of notes too. Just to follow up on what you're saying about the accuracy and the tilting, every page of a script was marked with the angle of a ship's deck at that point in the ship's descent to maintain accuracy and continuity when scenes were shot out of order. So now I'm going to, this is somewhat random, but some things that that tickled me or interested me. So as you said, Walter Lord, the guy who wrote the best-selling book, found 64 survivors. The Rank organization found quite a few more, during the making of the film. Several of them visited the set, including Edith Russell, a fashion journalist and stylist who had with her a lucky stuffed pig that played music. During one of her many visits, Russell, along with a stuffed pig, had the chance to meet the actress Teresa Thorne, who was playing her. She also had the chance to show Teresa the stuffed pig, which was much bigger than the one used in the film. And she bequeathed the pig to Walter Lord in her will. So I love that. Um, and Arthur C. Clarke, science fiction author, did two stories about that included this film as part of the narrative. And he dedicated one of them to the producer of the film, Bill McQuitty, who, when he was, I think, like 6, witnessed the launch of the RMS Titanic. And so the dedication from Arthur C. Clarke, from my old friend Bill McQuitty, who as a boy witnessed the launch of RMS Titanic and 45 years later sank her for the second time. Um, as Eric mentioned, there were 4 clips used from a Nazi propaganda film called Titanic. 2 of them, the ship waiting in calm waters during the day, and 2 of a flooding walkway in the engine room. The huge, Eric talked about miniatures, but there was a huge model used as well, 35 feet long. And the pool in which they filmed was only 15 feet deep. So the model was constructed in sections. As each section sank out of view, they removed it so it wouldn't hit bottom. The creaking noises during the sinking were created by the set as it was winched up to create a tilting deck effect. The microphones picked up on the noises. Roy Ward Baker thought they added a huge amount of realism as they sounded like the groaning noises a sinking ship would make, so he kept them in. It wasn't until 1985, when the wreckage of the Titanic was discovered, they found that the ship had split in 2 while sinking. In this film, the Titanic doesn't split in 2 because they didn't know that then. Let's see. When the Morse message is being received with the words "great number, large icebergs," that is exactly what the Morse code said. Unlike most films use gibberish for the Morse code, this is this is actually, they use the actual Morse code. And by the way, when they're eating dinner, they're they're eating the actual food that was on the menu that night. They didn't need to. They did they went over and above on realism. They did realistic things that no one would really pick up on. So God bless them for it. The director justified it by saying, well, they have to eat anyway. We might as well give them the precise food that was eaten that night, feeling it would add a level of realism, at least for the actors. During the this the set the production site at Pinewood usually had multiple films going, but in this case, this was the only film made, and it required all 1,200 workers to make it. It was the first time, possibly only time, everyone at Pinewood was working on the same production because it was so immense. This is considered the largest British production of the 1950s and one of the most expensive films ever made by the Rank organization. Let me see what else I wanted to mention. Oh, in terms of casting, um, some some of the actual Titanic survivors served as technical advisors. Um, the lookout, um, portrayed by Bernard Fox, was later used in James Cameron's Titanic, in which he played Colonel Archibald Gracie. This is a weird bit of trivia, a weird bit of coincidence. Three of the people in this movie ended up playing Q in the James Bond films. Um, Desmond Llewellyn played Q 17 times, um, and let's see, Joffrey Baldon played Q in Casino Royale, and Alex McCowan played him in Never Say Never Again. I don't know how that happened, but it's, it's part of movie history. And three other three other actors from this film would go on to be in Ray Harryhausen's Jason the Argonauts, and two other actors ended up in Sink the Bismarck. So there was a lot of nautical follow through after this film. Um, and Eric mentioned the Irish. One of the actual Irish passengers, Patrick A. O'Keefe, was a young man when he boarded. He was 21. Just a few days beforehand, he'd had horrific dreams of a ship sinking, and he nearly canceled his ticket. However, he decided to board anyway. Once the Titanic was sinking, he managed to survive on the collapsible B lifeboat. So that's kind of interesting. And also, American author Morgan Robertson published a novella called The Wreck of a Titan in 1898. Made up a story about a large passenger liner called the Titan that hits an iceberg while sailing in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. And his story strongly resembles what actually happened 14 years later. So I'll stop there. But yeah, real life is interesting.
An interesting note about the pig. It was a music box, and it didn't work anymore. And Lord never he died in, I think, 2011. He never got it repaired because he said he never dared. Oh, and actually, there was a fourth actor who played Q in the James Bond films.
Who was in
With,
Titanic?
yep,
Wow.
just to make it even weirder. Yes, in Thunderball, you had it's in my notes. There's this Ronald Allen. So there you go. So it's actually four. Yeah.
Was that deliberate? Was
No,
someone
no, you just have this many character actors all together, and it's just going to happen,
amazing?
You'd think with 4 Qs on board, they might have been able to salvage the situation, but hey ho.
Nah, Q always because his answer to everything was to dangle James Bond over sharks and then walk away. No, I'm sorry, that was the other one. That was
There was one point that I wanted to mention, which is, of course, having to do with music, but a very interesting commentary on something that I think a lot about. Towards the end, the musicians ask themselves, "Why are we playing? No one is listening." And then one of them says, "Well, no one is listening when they're eating either." I To me that was a very profound statement.
And a little bit of gallows humor there, because when he says play number 9, it's the beginning of the funeral march.
Yes, yes.
Dum.
I mean, this
Is that Schubert? Is that Schubert's, right? Schubert's funeral march, isn't it?
Frederick Chopin's funeral. Frederick Chopin.
See what that's why I need Scylla and you. My knowledge of classical music is so poor.
Oh, mine is too, but this is part of my research.
Yeah.
another. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
So one comment, and I want to say before I say the comment that I think we all agree that for the most part, aside of the factual aspects, whatever they are, we are expressing our views. So it's not as to say our views are correct or important, but so that's what I wanted to say before I say my comment. When I consider, I'm going to stay away from we. When I consider that, and I must correct myself, it's not just a Homo sapiens documentary, but a study. I think it's both. It's a very, very interesting study on Homo sapiens or humans, and also a documentary. But one of the aspects is that we notice very clearly the tenor of the film from the beginning is which class you belong to. So I have to ask myself, how accurate are the so-called facts, historical facts, given to make the book and to consult the filmmaking, when these people, for the most part, are very much in the framework of what their view is on their class.
Well, and an interesting difference between this and the later Cameron version is you actually have sort of an assignment of blame to the upper decks, because so many wealthy people are on that ship that they're clogging up the Morse code telegraphs. The Marconi equipment with their personal messages, and the ice warnings can't come through, which I think is an interesting twist. How historically accurate is that? Unless you were on that ship, you won't know. But it is true that there were hundreds and hundreds of Marconi equipment messages coming off that ship, but because it is so incredibly expensive, a normal ship, unless it's emergency, nobody uses that, and so there was no reason for anyone to think up until then that those lines wouldn't be clear.
Yeah, and since we're just saying like, oh yeah, this person was in Q, this person was in that movie, this person, and yeah, this is an ensemble, huge cast. I think I mentioned like all the uh, all the actors, but like actors who played second roles or mostly like typecast in British movies and Hammer movies, the taxi drivers and all that. Uh, let's say like Jeremy, not just because I always have to mention something about Star Wars, Jeremy Bullock, who is somewhere in this movie. I think it was the operator in California and something. He's the actor for Boba Fett in the Star Wars franchise. Not that it's in any sort related, but just because we're just name dropping, I said, yeah, let's just add my Star Wars to that too.
There's a. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to say Eric's made a fantastic point in the chat that the Titanic hubris and arrogance lives on. Titan was the name of that submersible that went looking for the Titanic, I think, and decompressed, or I can't remember how it went down, but that kind of ownership over the sea, and that kind of the way people think, the way certain people, billionaires, the English, think they have mastery over it, it doesn't serve anybody well. And I'm amazed, Eric, that the name of that submersible was Titan. Thank you for reminding me of that.
Yeah, the talk about hubris, huh? But think about this though for a moment. The difference between the lower deck price of the ticket was £15 versus £800. So, and there's that great scene when the Irish, in reverse quotation marks, are going through the kitchen and just like looking around going, God, look at all the good stuff that the first class gets. But really, think about it. What were you paying that much more than the lower deck for? £800 versus £15. Which, if I don't have an inflation calculator in front of me, but you're talking about basically 30,000, 40,000 pounds in modern day money. What were you paying that much for? And it wasn't these little luxuries, and it wasn't being able to lose all your money to a professional gambler in a bar, and it was prestige, and John Jacob Astor, who's not represented in the film, was on that. Guggenheim died on that ship. That's what they were paying for. Whereas the people on the lower decks were simply getting transported. But I think this film does one thing that's pretty good from a class standpoint, in which it does show that once the lower decks were opened up, that's when panic ensued, because it's shown as being very, very orderly up until then. And then once they were the lower decks actually were opened up, then that because they had allowed the panic to fester underneath, and I think, and of course that nobody knows unless you were there on the ship. Nobody knows, and we're actually right there during those moments. But it is wonderfully dramatized in this film, and that big class difference, I think, is what really makes this film last for me and seem very, very modern in terms of, you compare it to like a film we did from 1944, which feels much more dated, oh gosh, I can't remember what was the No Coward film we did? This Happy Breed. Yes, yes. Yeah, that's why it feels much more modern to me, I think, this film.
So I agree with that. Just to provide another explanation for buying an expensive ticket, it's a luxury cruise. You're going to be on it a long time. You want to hang out with other people who you will potentially be doing business with while you're on the trip. It's like people pay millions of dollars to join a golf club. It's not to play golf. It's to do business in an informal setting with other millionaires and billionaires. So there can be a justification for paying for a much higher ticket from that angle.
Eric, I have to go to bed. Can I make one last point before I go?
Absolutely. I'd be disappointed if you didn't.
It's very so. High menu. Who's got my? Okay. The menus between 1912 England and 1958 England are pretty much the same. So that's maybe why they were eating that on set. The class thing comes across now. The Titanic is a huge industry in Northern Ireland, where it was built or set. I think it's set off from Liverpool, but it was built in Northern Ireland, and it's in one area, it's one of the only sources of employment. It's very like South Wales, where the miners now have to do tours of museums about mines. And yeah, that struck me when I saw that the other day. The Titanic is a massive, massive industry in Northern Ireland. And I kind of think that's sad. But if people are being employed, I mean, there's museums and there's tours and stuff. Hey ho. And on that, I will wish you all a good night.
Also,
Good night,
Kathy, to
Catherine.
follow up on your thing about Titan, the submersible was in fact on a expedition to view the wreck of the Titanic, and one of the people on it was a Titanic expert, uh, a French deep sea explorer and Titanic expert. So yeah, the ironies abound.
Thank you, Kathy. We appreciate you being here. If you ever get to see Kenneth Branagh's Belfast, the opening shots are all of the shipyard and the dock where Titanic was built. So it's actually really terrific look at what Kathy was talking about. I think that film came out sometime during the panic, so I'm going to say 2020 or 2021. Belfast, directed by Kenneth Branagh.
There was a commentary earlier about women and children first, and I just wanted to mention. I'm not trying to say something new, but I had the impression this got lost in that commentary. Women and children first. The the men we think are able to save themselves easier. That's what we think. The women can born new children, and the children have a future. So that is in part what they were trying to do. But I found very curious that this child that was left behind, I don't understand how that could have happened if that was in fact true. How nobody, no mother, no uncle or somebody was looking for this child because he was calling for his mother quite a while before the old man picked him up. And to the question, why did it go down? Again, I think we all know this, but that is precisely for me the study about Homo sapiens. Why did we go down? We knew, or they knew, well ahead what was going to happen. The other ship saw signs. For some reason, there was some problems with communication, which for me, I don't. It doesn't make any sense to me that the other ship, I think it was, I can't remember the name of it. It started with a C, Ka something. I don't understand why this ship did not react. It had signs. It told the rockets. So there was plenty of information for them outside of the ship and within the ship to understand this is getting dangerous. And as we know about the classicism, they kept saying, well, we're going to keep doing as nothing happens. So why did so few people were saved? That is for me exactly the point. We were acting as very interesting human beings, and that's why so many died.
Well, Lord answers that in the book a little bit. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was just
I'm
going to
sorry.
say the name of a ship Sila was going for. It's the SS Californian.
Yes, yes, correct.
And Lord answers that
Or
in the book quite
Carpathia.
a bit.
And
He says that they were they were hesitant to help and were looking for any excuse not to, because they would have had to go through the same iceberg field that had sunk the Titanic, and so they would have been putting themselves in jeopardy. And I don't know if maybe that's not being made as clear in the film. There is a scene where basically they're looking out over the and over the icebergs, and the first rockets are going off. It says, "Well, that could mean anything. That could mean anything," and it cuts to, and you're supposed to get that point. I don't know if it's made it as clearly as in the book, where obviously you're reading words. It's literally it states that they were afraid to go through that ice field.
So, and the whole thing gets the climax when the captain, I believe he's from California, the captain, who says, everything that was humanly possible has been done. That is a bombastic lie.
Yeah, yeah.
It is. And you know why? It's one of the things that I think it's so important regarding to the class, but that it's so well depicted here is at the beginning, the telegrams, that instead of sending the distress signals, they were sending for because they because of the fear of these rich people, they were telegramming the birthday wishes, the Christmas wishes, instead of sending the the iceberg alerts or the distress signals, and it was all get lost with the paperwork. And what Sila said, I think, about that kid, it's so important. Going back to that hubris and tragedy, and I think it plays to that uh human frailty, and and the disaster movie aspect of this film, that when a disaster in this scale happens, how do we, as just I said it, that it's the casting in this movie, this movie as an ensemble cast matters, because this ship is a microcosm. Titanic is a microcosm of humanity, of us. And it shows very well that at the beginning, yes, there were children, women and children were so respectfully and in order put, were in the lifeboats. But then when the actual panic happens, that kid, I think, symbolizes the reality of panic and fear, when and human frailty in the face of catastrophic events. That's what it shows. And the other thing that I think was, you know mm, that the other that Eric mentioned about the hubris, I think technological hubris. Titanic itself is a symbol of technological hubris. I mean, we can blame that person, blame that person. We can say, oh, but it's sinking, I think, it's the demonstration of the limitation of human achievements all the time. The like going to space, for example, right now, we can say there's always this engineering. One of the other, it reminded me of the silence movie, the come on, Eric, help me here, Korochow's The Earth. It was Korochow's, right? When that they bring the tractor for the farmers, and the
It's
tractor
just
stops.
Earth.
Oh, Earth, yeah. So they bring the tractor for to help, and the way that movie like mocks the communism and all that here is that, or I don't know, it's they bring tractors to help. It's kind of bring this machine to help the farmers, but then the machine stops working, and then they blame the farmers. So, but then something funny happens, that the farmers, to in sign of protest, they go and like pee inside the tractor instead of gas. It's so funny to show, and the funny thing is, then the tractor starts running, to show that still it's the human power that overcomes this machine. And you see, we were talking about the class and all that. I think it's this that belief of, this. I'm going to talk about it later at the end of the movie, that all the class and everything. But the way that movie shows, portrays this confidence that money and social class brings, that they were keep repeating this sentence, that it's unsinkable, it's unsinkable, like in
But
the
no
in
one,
the
no one who actually is involved in the ship ever
yeah,
called it unsinkable. It's
exactly.
only the audience. I wanted to welcome Linda to the stage. Linda, thank you for joining us today. And how are you? And what reflections did you have?
Hi, thank you. I remember this movie. I'm in the United States. I don't know if any of you are aware of the $1 Million movie that used to be. A program that ran in the 50s through the 80s, late 80s, and it would show a movie several times. In fact, every single day and twice on Saturday, if I'm not mistaken, if I remember right. And I believe this was one of the movies I had seen when I was a child and was very much impressed by it. And two things come to mind, and I did see Cameron's version of it as well, although I loved that one too. But you almost can't compare the two movies because not only have decades passed, but the technological you know advances in making a movie are far different, right, from the 50s to the 80s. 50s movies, and if I'm not mistaken, this one was also black and white. The movies in those time areas were run by the actors and actresses. That whole emotional, reading their lines, showing their emotions, their expressions, that's what drove the movies in those days. You could literally sit there for 2 hours and just literally watch people tear your heart apart, or make you laugh, or do all these different things. It was just amazing. And as a child, this just gripped me. And another thing too, I always think that music plays a huge role in the success or failure of a TV show or a movie. I fervently believe that. And part of the reason is because that music will stay with you, or you will remember it from that movie or show. And if I'm not mistaken, and I have not seen A Night to Remember in a long time, I don't even remember, when I saw it last, but I believe there was that haunting music involved in that movie. And I don't know if anybody can tell me whether or not I'm right, but it seemed like it was. And I don't think I know they had the band on the or was it like an ensemble playing on the ship on the deck, but the music was just really haunting, and you almost feel like you were sinking as well. So anyway, that's just my thoughts. And
Yeah, well, William Alwyn wrote the score, and that was actually from his. The music was from his opera Miss Julie, that he incorporated into the score that the band played.
there you go, there you go.
And as for $1 Million Movie, because I share that memory, that was from the late 70s and early 80s. It was on WOR TV, Channel 9.
That's
Another
right, Channel 9.
another aspect about
Got a bunch of New Yorkers here today.
another aspect about music I noticed. I think it's the first half of the movie where you have several times, but on one particular moment, you see how they use sounds. I wouldn't say background music, but the atmosphere of the film is underlined by the way they play the sirens of the ship. But they play it in such a way that you almost think they're doing a composition with the different sirens of the ship. So I found that very interesting, how they use these sounds, not just as somebody said before, in terms of the water amounts and the darkness, but also the sounds that were not music. They were just a little bit exaggerated as a main point of what was going on acoustically.
Yeah, and
And
it's
I
interesting that. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry,
no,
Yassi.
sorry. I think again that symbolism of to
Yes,
portray the
yes.
musicians as heroes. You know, the musicians were the one who stand to the end with bravery. You know, the symbol of calm and bravery facing this catastrophe. I think they brought the dignity of them standing instead of running away for their lives or for their possessions. You know, they stood there and they brought solace and calm. And the song, I think it's that is always associated with Titanic during this, and that nearer my God to thee, I think. But I think historically that's not correct. That's not what they actually played. They played something more. They said that in the in Criterion, which is funny to know that this movie is rate number 7, I think, in Criterion. It means it was the 7th movie that they bring to the collection. It shows the importance of this film. The uh, in the document, and they keep adding more and more documentaries and extras to the film in Criterion collection. So they explain, and they said that factually it wasn't the music played. They played something more upbeat and something that brought joy to people, not like something that, oh yeah, go to your death, follow the light. No, it wasn't something to enhance their their feelings and bring like joy to them, especially to the kids.
Also,
As
when you come,
musicians do, all they do is bring joy.
well, also to a more how would I say that? An interesting point about the musicians is that when the leader tells them just go, and they finally say, okay, we'll go. So he stays alone and he starts playing. This dedication, not only that he says, okay, so I will do as a captain, I will take care of the rest. And they turn around, they say, no, we cannot leave you alone. So they come back and they accompany him just with the dedication. We must, we must, just like the attitude of the captain.
Now, did anyone accidentally watch the colorized version of this film? Because I did, I got a couple of people back channeling me going, there was something wrong with the color on their copy, and I was like, that this film's in black and white, and apparently there's a colorized version floating around.
There is a colorized version of this. And actually, it says on Criterion Channel, if you go, it says that that version is coming soon also to Criterion Collection. Added to
I
this
have
one.
not
The
heard good
I
things.
would like,
disaster, yeah.
I would like to see which color scarf Guggenheim was wearing.
That's a good. Okay, all right. I'll colorize that photo, but yeah, keep your hands off these old movies. You know, honestly, with the money that Rank put into this, if they wanted that film to be in color, they would have made it in color. I'm just saying. Dominic, good to see you, my friend. Welcome to the stage. We usually catch you when you're unable to talk, but we caught you on a day when you could join the stage. How are you, my friend?
It's glad to see everyone again. Um, I was just trying to remember the jingle to $1 Million Movie. So um, I was wondering about whether this film had um, uh, was making a political statement about the Cold War and 1958. We're getting close to Sputnik and the idealization of the American century. And um, I wonder if the sinking of the Titanic was not a symbol of the potential for the American century being from a particular socialist perspective, uh, uh, a fantasy. um, and because as I think I read somewhere that the writer of the book that the film was based on uh, was amazed that there wasn't a lot of interest in the story of the Titanic prior to his writing of the book and the film being made. Uh, I don't. That's what I was thinking about.
To
Yeah,
me,
he
that's
really
a
did
very
provide.
good
Go ahead.
point. Well, just shortly, to me, that's exactly what I've been talking about. The the essay or the documentary on what humans are, modernity, classicism, and not caring for really what. I mean, it's even the price of where you stayed on the luxury class or the third class, whatever. I'm a little bit
The
lost for words.
steerage. The steerage is a
Yes.
yeah.
So the the society, the high society, wants to pay more. That's part of their mindset. We have to pay more. We don't care that the steerage people are with us in the same boat, are probably going to die with us. But we pay more because we could pay more. So I think it's very much what you just said.
By the way, Dominic, I just pinned the WORTV $1 Million Movie theme song there for you, up in the top of the screen.
Uh, Dominic, I think I don't know if you were here when I talked about the. Oh, Eric.
Go ahead. Go ahead. I'm listening.
Totes worth it.
Yeah, I was saying that. Thank you, Eric. I'm not sure if you were here when I was talking about this, the dangers of over reliance on technology and all that. But I think what I can say, it's it resonates with the anxieties of the Cold War era, was this need for ethical leadership, and this uh, universal vulnerability in face of the potential nuclear catastrophe. This movie, like Titanic disaster, it like symbolizes this technological hubris and social inequality and leadership failure, this collective responsibility, all these themes and subtexts in this film, I think resonates with the theme, the with the Cold War theme that you mentioned. I think it or the this cultural dialogue uh, and the responsibility, for facing the danger uh, by this the humanity and the in in the modern history. I think uh, all these uh, interpretation of the film can resonates with the Cold War. And I think that's a very, very reflective observations. If you want to think that human resilience that is portrayed in this film and the solidarity during catastrophe or during Cold War, I think, humanity versus greatest challenges, and the hope for peace, the hope for survival. I think these are all resonant.
Yes, but a strong tenor is there is no sense for urgency. When Guggenheim says, "Tell my wife I died decently," he refuses to work to wear the life vest because he doesn't look good in it. I mean, it's a very very strange mindset what these people had. For the most part, the women who were saying, "No, I don't, I cannot wear this on top of that," and then it was just amazing how they displayed the lack of sense of urgency.
and the class differences are made a little bit more apparent to me, I think, also because unlike the 97 version where Cameron gives you Jack and Rose, two central characters to really kind of take you through the story, that the Titanic is basically the backdrop to their story. You don't actually have central people that you actually care that much about in this going through, and so the humanity of it is comes out of the scale as opposed to the human interaction, because when you have this many people, spread out, and so you do have Margaret, aka Unthinkable Molly Brown, shows up for a couple of scenes. You have, you also get the John Jacob Astor fill-ins and what have you, and you identify them, but you don't really identify with anyone. And this is something that, when it's done in this documentary fashion, I thought made the film very, very good and very, very powerful. But you don't really care about any of these people going through it, and so you're not going to have a long speech from any of them explaining anything to you, because you wouldn't listen to them anyway. Who the hell are they? But when say Irwin Allen started the disaster films, where he would just put together these huge cast of people and put a disaster around it, um, and he took out the documentary scene by scene bits. Those films don't work for me the way that this film does, and it is because there isn't anybody that I care about in it, because what I care about, the character in this film is the Titanic, and that is what I care about in this film. I don't care about the building in the Towering Inferno. I don't care about the blimp in whatever the blimp disaster movie is. But anyway, just a thought that I had when I was listening to you, Sila.
Another thing too is if you think about the audience at that time in the 50s, when I know in the United States you had a lot of happy large families who were living the life, if you will, who maybe were not awake, or what I mean, the way people are now and the way people dissect and look at things now, with a more skeptical sense. But I think that the audience was considered uh, greatly when they made the film, because I think what we came out of World War II, right? We are now trying to rebuild our lives around the world. We're trying to you know have a more fluffy, happy kind of sense of living. And because if I'm not mistaken, I remember reading articles about that, where there was a sensitivity to creation of songs, of movies, of lots of different things following World War II, right? There was a sensitivity about what was going to be presented, if you will. Maybe I'm just thinking with this film, they took a disaster, but yet they put that humanity spin on it, and wanted to make sure that people were going to still love the film, in spite of the fact that here we go again, another major disaster, that we just came out of a major disaster in our lives not too long ago. I mean, think of it this way. You look at 1958, the ship sank, what, 40 years before that? That's not very long, right? Not really. That's what, half of somebody's lifespan, maybe. That's not very, very long. But then when you look at the closeness of World War II in 1958, wow, that was just yesterday, if you will. Got a lot of painful sore spots for a lot of people in the audience, and they may get turned away or turned off by something that like plugged into that sensitivity, right? I'm just thinking, and maybe I'm off the mark, but if I'm not mistaken, there was that sense that don't bring something so bad to these people after we've just gone through this world war. So I don't know.
Yeah,
Am I right?
it was literally called "Don't Talk About the War." That was literally, and yeah, yep, you are correct.
And one thing that Eric you just said, that going back to what Izzy was saying, the American audience. William Macready, the producer, he says that when he was coming to America to sell the movie, one of the reasons that the American audience didn't receive the movie as well as the British audiences was that the lack of stars. American audiences were looking for the stars, and it says, you know it speaks to a lot about the audiences back then and today. But what you know what William Macready says was that the star of this movie is Titanic. And I think this is, I said at the beginning that I think one of the thing that we can study comparing these two movies is that how James Cameron understands the pop culture, and that he named the movie Titanic, because even back then people were keep saying that, oh, why did you like cast Kate Winslet, who is she, and saying a lot of things about her appearances and weight and all that. So but just because he called the movie Titanic, I think that says a lot about the why the movie's so popular. And again, like I just go back to Cold War Dominic's Cold War question. I think the other thing about this movie is, and also what Sila was talking about, that there was no sense of urgency, or they were keep talking about this trust, this they were keep calling the ship unsinkable. There were no concern. I think that, and then this sudden devastation, this sudden sinking, I think this is a metaphor or an actual catastrophe that because after the Titanic sinking, it was a wake-up call, and it changed a lot of limitation and rules regarding the lifeboats and all that. I think that also mirrors the dangers and the anxieties of Cold War and nuclear weapons, that and the danger of that overconfidence in nuclear deterrence. uh I think that is the other thing that we can relate this movie to the Cold War.
There are two other small points that I wanted to mention. I found that very curious how at the beginning of the film, the first conversation begins when the second commander, the main guy, he's showing to his wife this advertising about the new toilet soap that is going to be used for the first time on the Titanic. That speaks to the level of artificiality but conviction that we are really an incredible civilization. Another minimal aspect is that the designer of the ship, his name is actually Thomas. What's his name again? Andrews. His name is Thomas Andrews. I looked that up because I found a couple of things that I was questioning. But in the film, his wife keeps calling him Robert, and he was the one that at the end was quite by himself at the bottom, and he's the one who encounters Guggenheim and tells him he has to wear his vest. So this guy is the one who designed he was the main designer of the ship, but his name is actually Thomas. So I just wanted to mention that because maybe one of you know about why is not Robert instead of Thomas, or the other way around. Why is it Robert when it should be Thomas?
His father was named Thomas, so Rob was his a family nickname.
Oh, okay.
But I only know that from the
Can I
book.
just say something, Eric? Oh, sorry. The thing that I've just realised and bear with me because I can't sleep and I am tired. 1958 is 2 years. We look at this movie, this black and white movie. It's 2 years since Elvis brought his first single out, and I just realised that, and it's tickled me to think that this is going on in the background of this extraordinary film. That we've had this new wave, and Elvis kind of encompasses, I guess, with his movies and stuff, the black and white and the color age. And yeah, 2 years since Elvis has been a rocking it. That's just for me, so don't worry.
I don't think the film would work the same way in color.
It wouldn't work with an Elvis soundtrack. I'll tell you that.
Well, but Harold Macmillan was prime minister when this film. This was 1 year after he declared, "You never had it so good." The famous "You had never." This is the year that the play of last week's film. Uh, a Taste of Honey came out. I mean, yeah. This was yeah, this was 5 years before the Beatles. And I agree, Sila. I don't want to see the colorized version, and it has nothing to do with how good the technology is. If they wanted to make this film in color, they would have made it in color. Well, I guess that's a good point to start wrapping up. I'm going to just go in PTR order, and any final thoughts. This isn't. I'm not trying to close the room, and nobody's trying to rush anything. So, if something comes up, feel free to discuss it. But I'm going to start with High Bender.
Just referencing Sela's point, the advertisement for soap that Kenneth Moore reads at the film's beginning is a genuine advertisement for the days before Titanic's launch. Um, I, I thought. I mean, I'm just going to repeat what I said at the beginning. It's this amazing mix of documentary and drama, the drama of fiction. It's this incredible blend, and it has the urgency and the integrity of of real stuff, because it is real stuff, but it doesn't have the lag time of real stuff. It doesn't have the boring bits. It's just one incredible scene after another, and it's almost never over the top, where it pulls you out. It's a beautiful balance, and it holds. I think it's part of that reason that it holds up to this day as feeling still fresh and real. So it's a genuine classic. A classic is something that is eternally fresh, and that describes this film.
Thank you. Hi, Sila. Your final thoughts on Night to Remember?
Well, when we watch a movie like that, which in my opinion is not really a tragic film, because I don't think I'm trying to explain what I'm feeling right now. I don't think it's really showing us a tragical situation. Number one, because we know what happened. It's a historical film, so we know what happened. So we're not watching something that is dramatized and even less exaggerated, because that's another comment I wanted to make after High's comment. I find the film does not exaggerate a bit. I find it's very realistically in terms of the topics it's addressing, at least in my perception, and I think it does it very well. but because we know what happened, we know how many people got saved, and because we know why so many people died, for me, it's not just a tragic film where we just see a catastrophe taking place. I don't see it as a catastrophe for that reason. And I think as cinema, it's a very, very good work. And I thank you again, Eric. If you are the reason for this film, I thank you again for forcing me to watch a movie that I don't think I would have seen otherwise. And I thank everyone to that was here to participate and comment either the way you see it or little details about the film. I really enjoyed that film. Thank you.
It was actually the other Kathy, the one from the Midlands,
The
who's
singer,
in the rock
the
band.
singer. Oh,
Yes,
okay.
yes, it was her suggestion. She's not here today, unfortunately. We tried our best to schedule around her, but we ended up having to go ahead and do her suggestion. And it is too bad she can't be here, but she can hear it on either the replays or on the UK Cinema History podcast available on Apple and on Spotify. Uh, your Yazzie Sophie, your final thoughts on A Night to Remember.
My final thoughts is pretty long, so I think I'm gonna go last.
Fair enough. Nishindali, your final thoughts on A Night to Remember. And again, thank you for joining us for the first time today.
Nishadali.
Okay, that's fine. That happens. Linda, your final thoughts on A Night to Remember.
You know, someone mentioned color, and I honestly believe that the magic of this particular film had a lot to do with, and because of the time era, and when it was made, 1958, being too realistic. To me, may not have quite worked. It's kind of like I like horror movies that don't show me the blood, okay, or that don't show me the actual act that was done. Now, some of you may love that, but for me, I just need to know what happened. I don't need to know how specifically it happened and watch through every like detail of a a sick mind as they're performing the act. You know what I mean? To me, this movie didn't need to show you the details of a murder, okay? It just did it so beautifully that even though there was a tragedy, like someone said, you still saw the humanity. And that is so fulfilling. It actually is an uplifting uh, thing to here you have a ship that's sinking, right? But at the same time, the movie was uplifting and making you feel like there's hope, right? So, anyway, thank you so much for letting me speak.
Thank you for being here, Linda. We appreciate you. Nishindali, I see you unmuted. Your final thoughts on A Night to Remember.
Yeah, thank you, Eric. Thank you all. Sorry about that. Had the mic on mute. Yeah, definitely a movie I'm going to watch again. Thoroughly enjoyed it. From a cinematography standpoint, um, and it was just it was remarkable. Um, the film as a whole, of course, not celebrating the tragedy of the Titanic, but just the very realism that was involved, black and white, and the perspective from the second officer. I thought that was really something else because it just wasn't based on primary characters like in Cameron's version. So a must see. I think definitely going to recommend this and recommend the group to fellow film buffs, and definitely look forward to watching this film again. Thank you, Eric, and thank you all for letting me speak, and stay blessed. Thanks.
And thank you for being here, and hopefully we can see you next week for Kind Hearts and Coronets. Dominic.
Absolutely. Thanks.
Dominic's on the phone.
No, I refreshed these off the phone. But just in case. Dominic, are you there? Or we'll come back to you. Kathy, your final thoughts before you go to bed.
This is the second best feature about the Titanic. The first one being the Futurama version. And also, spoof-wise, Modern Family do a very good one. Yeah, it's a terrific film. I was so gutted I couldn't watch it again today. Thank you so much for choosing this, Eric. It's whoever nominated it.
Kathy, the other Kathy.
Yeah. This is what I love about this club, and this is what I like about this house and all of that kind of stuff. But yeah, if you haven't seen the Futurama version, do so.
All right, let me try and see if I can get back to Dominic. If not, we're going to let Yassi bring us home. Dominic, are you able to give us your final thoughts on Night to Remember? All right, Yassi, bring it home. No pressure. Be witty, but also be brilliant.
Just one thing before we put it to the end. I think we forget to talk about the the corpses, the bodies that they were trying to find. One of the thing about the social class is a fact that even the, you know, after when they were recovering the bodies, they were trying to find those first class, actually the rich people's bodies, because of the will. You know, they need them to as a proof of death. And the other thing is, I think with some, you know, that some, we see women that they don't want to get separated from their husband. I think the socialist stigma of attached to the afterwards, that, you know, I think they would have been blamed that, oh, you saved yourself and then your husband. I think these this pyramids of, you know, the hierarchies after this disaster is something to be considered. Um, so, okay, I think that the psychology of disbelief is a prominent aspect in this film, that, you know, people struggle to accept or react appropriately to, you know, to an unfolding disaster. The way that movie shows this is it's, you know, it's all over this film. I said it, we keep hear this unsinkable ship. You know, they're not gonna believe, they don't believe it. They have this trust over trust to that this ship is invincible. You know, this overconfidence of uh also of the class. And the thing that it, you know, I think visually, as Eric mentioned, that the tremblance, everything that shakes, tilted, you know, first people who feel it were the people who were at the bottom, at on the actually on the third class, you know, the crew were working. The- they were, oh, and the, the, you know, not even the second class, the third class people, they felt it. So this disbelief is something that we see, and the movie is mostly from, you know, even the movie, even though it tries to be from the perspective of all the people, even I think there is a little bit of bias in it, in the movie's narrative, uh, to the point that they largely ignore and downplay this. And why I think it matters, because, you know, I said it, we, through the motifs of films showing the ice, the calm water, you know, but then suddenly the panic happens. I think we disregard the small things that happens. And I kind of want to tie it to the reality of today, especially because there's this election going on in UK and in France, and tonight we have this this debate and everything. I think we should see this, consider this small, alarms that happens around us, and we kind of ignore them. And don't let this disbelief, this psychological aspect, that it's kind of instinct in human being, it's part of our survival, this disbelief, but we don't want to accept the danger. But it's happening, and the urgency, the emergency of that is something that it's very well unfolded in this movie. And through the pace, through the this black and white cinematography that gives it this very authentic, uh kind of, as you all mentioned, this docudrama aspect. So I think that the other thing is this mixed reactions. Different characters react differently to this, to to this realization. That's the other thing we see in the close-ups, through the close-ups in the film. And the officers, again, through different classes, the passengers and the officers, and like what Sila says, the designer of the ship, he is the first one. This conflicting information that happens, this misinformation, is another thing that we see, cause its ends to this, unforgivable disaster of sort. And how a disaster shapes slightly the way that it starts, and the small things that we ignore. But we should acknowledge the danger, and we should hear everybody, we should see the clues, we should react to clues properly at the right moment. We should understand the immediate dangers. And the other thing, I think, the 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 way that this, again, comparing to Cameron's movie, I think what this movie does very well is that it doesn't need a Billy Zane character as a villain. It says that, it it the drama that it creates, it's nature, it's our weaknesses, our ignorances. And what else? So yeah, I think, um that's all. I talk too much. This optimism bias, with the wealthy individuals. It's, I think, because they're sitting in the position of power, so they decide, they can amplify their disbelief in the face of danger. So I think w- we should have our, individual, uh uh kind of awareness, uh our individual faith in facing everything that is happening around us. I think this is something that I took from this movie.
If I
Even
may, if I may add something to that, I think actually after what you just said, I think actually the first class, the people who thought to be better than the others, I think they're actually refusing to take responsibility for their power. I think they're rejecting any control of what's going on, and they're just giving up in several ways, either by, no, I'm not separating from my husband, no, I'm not going onto that boat with so many people. Somehow, and especially Strauss, as well as Guggenheim, somehow they are refusing to take to take their power for themselves. They're just saying, okay, uh, whatever happens, happens. Not in a relaxed way, but somehow frustrated way. I don't know. But when you said that, I thought of that. That the rich people, the people from the high class, somehow in this situation they have said, I'm not taking responsibility for the power with the power I have.
Exactly, like precisely this confidence and complacency, that they dismiss the danger at even at the end. There, but actually in the extras of Criterion, they have to accept their mistakes and all that. But this, I think, yeah, you're absolutely right. Even though they cause the problem, at the moment that the disaster is unfolding, they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. They're not actually delivering their responsibility, and they're not delivering what they have, the power that they have to save not even others. They're not saving themselves, let alone others at some point. And
Not
that's why I
even,
say,
no, I'm sorry, not even that sense of survival, because I don't remember anybody wanting to be the first on the rescue boats. So they're not even fighting to be saved first.
This makes me think that the next step for the creation of a Titanic movie in the future, which I was thinking, but then I thought what would be really amazing would have a series, like a Netflix or some kind of a series that would, with each show, would take apart some of these very complex, like analysis of the people on board the ship, and also show by show, basically highlight some of your conspiracy, some of your non-conspiracy, talk about the Federal Reserve. I guess there were people on board that would have completely changed all of that. Can you imagine? I'd love that. Like, let's now forget about the dramatic Titanic sinking. Now let's pull from all of this, as the background, now push to the forefront. Who exactly were these people? Let's tear each one of these people apart with each show. Could you imagine? Wow, that I think would be a very powerful series.
But it has to be in color.
Yes.
See, being British, I totally get why people acted as they did. The upper class will literally step on a child very happily to preserve their own lineage and their own lives. Lineage probably more than life. Um, Trampling over the working and the middle class comes as natural as breathing to the upper class in the UK, and kind of doffing your cap to the upper class, unfortunately, is built in a lot of working class people's DNA. If they tell you to do something, you do it. Not me, but a lot of people. So I totally get why people acted as they did. Um, that's not the big surprise of the story to me. The story for me, the big surprise is the complete hubris of this massive folly of thinking you can beat the sea. Um, I'd like to know the motivations of that. I think
Did they learn nothing from Canute?
no.
something else that
Kathy,
that Sia
Kathy,
said about the
oh my
class was
God,
that
are you
he
kidding me?
yes,
What is
yes, and
wrong with you?
he said
Let me talk.
the social classes, he said,
Oh my
is that
God.
this rigid class system that Sila mentioned was so well portrayed for they were going back.
Kathy, I just wanted to say that I'm grateful to your insomnia so that you could share that with us. Yes.
Where's Yassi gone? Oh, there she is. No, yeah, the British upper class will literally kill to prevent. You know, we've seen it in the royal family. Not that many generations ago, they will let their cousin. You know, at the end of, there's a great photo of just as the Russian Revolution was starting, when what's his name, Nicholas, came over to the UK, and of course he's cousins with uh, the English king at the time, and I guess the German guy as well. And of course, what did they do? They cut them adrift. Like, no, we're cousins, but hey ho, England rules.
Was it Balzac who said, "Behind every great fortune is a great crime"? Well,
Why is Yassi at the bottom?
Yeah, what's going on there? Come up,
I
darling.
keep trying to invite her up. Yazzie, push on your face. And you should be able to come back up. We're experiencing yet another glitch. Great.
Can I share just a little bit about when it was it Kathy that was talking about the persistence of the upper class and their the mentality to live on, you know, that kind of thing. Okay, so I think even middle class are that way. I know my ancestry had an uncle that went back into our to trace our roots and where we came from. Come to find out, yeah, we're British too. And the thing was, I guess was it King Henry VIII? I don't know, one of those kings decided that he wanted to change the church or do all these different things, where our family said, oh no, oh heck no. You know, sorry, but we're not going to go along with what you're saying. And so as a result, you know, we ended up migrating to I think it was the Azores Islands, and that's kind of where we came from. So I think that overall, I mean, uh, the British people are a tough group, and they're not going to let just anybody push them around, especially the upper class. I totally agree with that, because they've got the money to stop being pushed around. But you've also got that center or middle class that may not necessarily have been in the third class, that are tough as well, and have that sense of you know, we're going to rule the world. And I mean, think about it. I mean, how big is Britain, right? It's not that big, yet they're still a powerhouse.
Eh,
They're the eighth biggest economy in the world. They're pretty powerful. You're pretty powerful, Kathy.
thank you, Eric. I don't think we are not as powerful as we think we are. You know, eighth is still pretty good, but this is off topic, so I'll shut up.
Well, unless anybody has anything else, I'm gonna bring this room to a close. Anybody got anything else?
Oh, yeah, this might be a little off topic, but then kind of on topic. I read a couple of years ago Rod Serling wanted to do an episode on the Titanic, where he kind of took a script, a page right out of the episode with Russell Johnson of Gilligan's Island, going back into the past and trying to avert the Lincoln assassination. But then Rod Serling had second thoughts, essentially out of respect for the tragedy and the victims, and kind of did away with that project. But if he had gone through with it, sending somebody in the past to try and avert this Titanic disaster, I mean, I always wondered, could it just have been, the turn of the wheel, to prevent the iceberg, and they would have made it to, New York City. And a second question I had was, is there a documentary or a prequel about, what the Irish went through, to build this monstrosity, if anyone has any info on that, I'd greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
I don't off the top of my head, but I will do some research, and I'll put it up on our Facebook page. We are UK Cinema History over there on Facebook, and also on the Apple and the Spotify podcasts.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much, Eric. I appreciate that.
Other than that, our next week we're going to be doing Kind Hearts and Coronets, a healing comedy starring Alec Guinness. That's going to be July 4th, which is a holiday of sorts over here in the States, since we have a room full of New Yorkers, so Kathy will be the only one who has to work that day, but we'll also probably, even though it's 5 o'clock in the afternoon, there will be fireworks sounds in the background of all of our cell phones for that one. But I know for sure it's on BFI and on Criterion. I hadn't looked to see.
No, it is not on. I'm sorry, it is not on Criterion.
Oh, it's not on
It is.
Criterion.
It is only on BFI.
And
Let
it's
me.
also on Internet Archive for free.
Okay. I didn't know that. That's interesting. I signed up. BFI channel, British Film Institute channel, allows you a 14-day free trial. So I signed up for that exclusively so I could watch Kind Hearts and Coronets and also Wicker Man, because those are both on there. And then I watched them, and then I canceled my trial. It didn't cost me anything, and I appreciated them providing the service. And if you want to um, uh, let the trial run out and subscribe, go with God. It's a wonderful service, but if you don't, that is a legit way to watch it. Also, you can rent it, and I didn't know that at the time, but you can also rent it from Amazon for like $3.50. And what is this about Internet Archives? How does that work?
It's Internet Archive. Okay, well, let me pull up the exact address. But
While Eric's doing that, Kind Hearts and Coronets is a phenomenal movie. Um, A Night to Remember is an amazing movie. That too is an amazing movie. We're doing two amazing movies in a row.
give me just a sec here while I get the address, and then I'll just put it in there.
Take this opportunity to mention that the only date that I have fixed right now for Ingmar Bergman is because of Yassi. On the 14th of July is his birthday, or would have been his birthday celebration. And for that day, I will be opening a room with Face to Face. It's a film that it's almost impossible to find, but I bought the CD a couple of weeks ago, so I'm not sure how many people will be able to see it. But just in honor of Yassi, we will be discussing Face to Face.
Speaking of Yazzie, I can't get her back up on the stage. Something has glitched, and she's trying to get back on the stage, and she can't. So I'm going to have to get to the
Leave and
bottom.
come back is the key. Sorry.
She did that 3 times. It hasn't worked, so I don't know. Anyway, other than that, we'll see you next week for Kind Hearts and Coronets. And if you
Eric, what happened with the Internet Archives thing?
look at the top, it's the link's right there.
Oh, that's a really difficult way to get the link. Could you put it in the chat?
Okay. There we go.
Thank you so much.
yeah, both the Wicker Man have and Fine Arts and Cornets are on there. So
And who's, well,
anyway,
I just wanted, who's paying for that?
it's through the library system, but it's not, but it's more voluntary, and also if you they do have a donate. I donate $15 a year, but they do have a donation button if you want to help
Well, if
them.
it's through a library system, it might be regional.
Yep, no, this one's not. This one's not like you don't. They're your library. You don't have to put a library card in. Yeah, so it's not based on your library
Oh, it's
system.
amazing. I will check that out. I did not know of this resource. Thank you so much.
Very good. I am going to have to try and get to the bottom of why I can't get Yazzie back, but while I'm working on that, everyone have a good week. Stay safe over the 4th of July. I expect everyone to have all 10 fingers when we get back here on July 4th. And other than that, I'm going to end the room in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Thank you. Thank you again for listening to UK Cinema History. If you want to join the conversation, follow the link in the episode description. Every Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where we record these episodes live on the Clubhouse app. Hope to see you there. And while you're listening, please rate us and review us on your favorite podcaster. It'd be doing us a great favor. And thanks again.